Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvelously well. I'm sitting here with Rocco Guarino.
You got it.
Yes, yes. Nobody can ever pronounce my name right, so.
Huart?
Yeah, there you go. You won.
Yeah. Is it really? People mispronounce it?
Yeah, you know, it's even my old doctor in England used to call me Mr. Huart. Now we're going to get millions of comments about Huart. He put a B in there. I think it used to confuse people.
Yeah.
So, Rocco, you run Lavish Studios.
I do.
And Lavish Studios is Scott Wineland's studio.
Yeah.
We're not going to get morbid here, but obviously Scott died just about a month ago now.
Yeah.
And you contacted me and you wanted to talk about the studio and you want to talk about Scott's legacy and everything you did here. And I think that's fantastic because I know there'll be a lot of people that want to know that. Plus, frankly, the gear is fantastic.
Cool. Nice
Selection of tasteful stuff.
Cool.
How long have you been at the studio working with Scott?
I've been here since 2002. And
That's a good 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Started out as Scott's partner's assistant at the time. Started out, you know, just wrapping cables, taking out the trash, and then worked my way up, you know.
That's fantastic.
Actually, I actually started out, I started here and then Scott's personal assistant, and ended up doing a bunch of music videos for Velvet Revolver. And, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah.
We were talking about Dave Kushner a minute
Exactly,
ago,
yeah.
who's an old friend of mine from many years ago.
Yeah, he's the best. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I would just take little photos here and there and videos just for fun, and then show them to the guys, and they liked them, so they asked me to do some webisodes, and then I did some short-form documentaries, and I did a long-form documentary, and then I did a music video. And
how did you end up on the engineering side?
That is always been my first love. Video kind of came later.
Oh,
yeah. So when I was 16, I bought an Akai 4-track, and it was before the plastic ones. This was metal, with oak sides and a leather armrest. It was 4-track cassette.
Yes.
It was amazing. It was heavy. Yeah. I couldn't throw that thing in my backpack, you know.
It was cassette. That's great.
Cassette, 4-track. And so yeah, I would be.
So you had a posh 4-track.
I had a fancy one. I did. And yeah, upstate New York in the basements up there, just recording my bands, you know. And then you know, they came out okay, I guess, and then other bands just asked me to record them and so on and so forth.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that part of the story about going off, being an assistant, making videos, editing and stuff, because, you know, I've guitar teched, I've wrapped cables, I've done anything just
over-under?
Yeah, over-under. Just anything to stay involved when you're coming up, just to be around it.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
We talk a lot about music as being a passion, but it's also a lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I never got to work in like a big studio as an intern or assistant or a runner or anything. I've always sort of came up in the little boutique ones like this. So I even though I've done certain things in my career, I've still asked friends that work at like Ocean Way, hey, how do you guys store your mic? You know, like it's always like little questions like that, you know.
Well, there's the great thing is this is the future and the present and everything.
Yeah.
It really is. It is the smaller studios. Obviously, for a lot of people watching with, you know, very small DAW setups, so this is going to be considered to be large. But ultimately, this kind of studio was always on the sort of underground. You know, when we were kids, and there was just these. It was $2,000 a day studios, and then there was studios like this.
Exactly. Exactly. I always gravitated towards these.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Anything with a vibe. Yeah.
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 So you started. When did you start engineering with Scott then?
I guess it would have been like, I mean, officially about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because I had a partner, Doug, who was really great. Took me under his wing and ran the place here with Scott up until about 2 years ago. Yeah.
And now you run the studio. You record stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said you had a band in recently.
Yeah, our first project here when we were open sort of to the public was a band called Census Fail.
Great.
Yeah, they came here just to do their drums, just because of the sound of the room out there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, because I think the room is really unique sounding. Daniel Lanois did Scott's solo record and made a comment about the sound of the room, and I put it on our website just because Daniel Lanois, you know. But
fantastic.
You know, most studios are wood, you know, wood floors, wood walls, wood ceiling. So this one, being velvet and concrete, has a unique sound. It like kind of harkens back to the day where if you wanted a certain sound, you had to go to that studio, and people would go to different studios to hear the sound of the room, to pick the room sound that they want for their drums. You know what I mean? I don't feel like that happens as much today because everything's replaced and reverbs.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, out of necessity. I mean, my studio, my personal studio, the live room's probably about the size of this controller, you know. So I end up replacing a lot when I want to have big rock tones.
Exactly.
But when I have a budget, I go to a studio and capture the room tone.
Yeah.
I like the concrete, and
it's kind of cool, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We just got lucky, you know. There was no, as you'll see, there's no real design to it, you know.
And you have a stage out there. Do you put the drums on the stage, or do you put it on the concrete?
On one song on Scott's last record, Blaster, I put the drums up on the stage because we wanted a really, really dead sound. So that was kind of cool. And my goal was ultimately was to deaden the whole stage area even more. So if I wanted like a super dead sound, I could put the drums up there and then live sound on the floor.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I find on a stage, especially if it's hollow, a lot of the bottom end disappears, so it ends up just being kind of like
exactly,
very tight sounding.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then did you sort of like come around it and baffle off around it even more?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some baffles around the back and the sides.
Oh wow, so you went to super dead.
We tried to go super dead. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. It was great to have a room where you can have variations.
Have those options, like an Ocean Way with the drumbrella, you know.
United now they call it.
Oh yeah. United,
back to the original.
Back to the
the original
it's
name.
Amazing. It's
pre
cool.
Alan Sides.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I was there just recently. It's a wonderful room.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this great gear. We were just at Rob Schnaff's, and he has an MCI.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, you were saying as well, Back in Black, being recorded on one.
Yeah.
The thing that I always remember was my old friend Dave Jordan did I think 3 albums with Eno. He did My Life Bush of Ghosts.
Yeah.
Remain in Light, and I'm blanking on what the third one was, but he told me Eno's favorite console was an MCI. Yeah,
so Dave Jordan, I talked to him a lot about, he had this exact same board, the 528B, at El Dorado, right down the street where they did it.
Thank you, that's great.
Yeah.
So he had this console at El Dorado.
Yeah.
We were talking to Rob about that, saying that they had the MCI in El Dorado, so that's a nice segue.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, isn't that fantastic? Because, you know, Eno... Look, we were just touching on David Bowie, you know, the Berlin period with Eno, and obviously Heroes is one of the greatest sounding records ever made. And it's nice to come to a couple of studios, and like I've turned up at Rob's place, I didn't know he was going to have an MCI.
Yeah.
I turned up here today, I didn't know you were going to have an MCI. We didn't talk in advance about it.
Yeah.
And it's great to see these around because there's not many left.
There's not. Yeah, I posted a picture on our website of Bowie leaning up against an MCI.
Oh, I'm going to find it.
There's elbows on it. It's on our Facebook page.
Oh, I'm going to find it.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's the older one, the 416, the one that was at Marshall Shoals, and the black one.
I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah. So this thing's really cool, man. It came from NOLA Recorders in New York City, and they unfortunately closed down. They were like a jazz label, I guess, back in the day. A lot of the greats recorded at NOLA back in the day. I guess it was you were either on Blue Note or you were on NOLA. Which I never heard of it. So this was, we call it the Sesame Street console. Everything you've heard on Sesame Street, all the musical guests for the past 25 years was recorded and mixed on this board.
The Sesame Street console?
Yeah, you know how they're musical guests?
Yeah.
Like all the biggest names in the world, yeah. And then what else? Bob Marley's last record that they released posthumously was mixed on this board. I think you can still see some weed in here, which is not mine, I swear. So yeah, it's really cool. It's 28 channel, 32 bus. The EQ is really cool. One of my favorite features is how it's got a boost cut button. You know, so you're in boost mode. You find, you know how when you boost, you find the ugly frequency, and then you cut it. Yeah. So that's how this works. Instead of, you know, so you boost, you figure out the frequency that's ugly, and then you cut it.
So you just hit the button and it cuts it?
It's this boost cut button. It's very cool.
That's a great feature.
It's really cool. And that's the way now I go on a regular console, and now I have to do it manually. But yeah, so that's why this, these EQs are really cool. And then there's a lot of overlap, you know. This, the 2 mid bands.
Yep.
It goes from 180 to 8.5. Yep. And then this one goes from 150 to 7. So it's like a lot of overlap, which is really cool.
That's great. That's what I remember when Dave gravitated towards SSL after the MCI. I asked him the differences, and he loved the MCI for these features.
Yeah, the EQ.
Yeah, and then he said the thing about the SSL, the way he'd always do is he would find a frequency and boost and cut at exactly the same point to get a really tight shelving.
Yeah, cool.
So he probably learned that from doing it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and then. Like some of the nomenclature I think wasn't fully developed because, you know, it was, instead of mic MIC, it's mic level MIKE, like someone's name.
Hey.
And then you've got the wet button.
So you want to make the signal more wet?
Wet. There you go. Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So every channel has 1, 2, 3, 4 faders. There's a lot of faders going on.
And so these are signable?
Oh yeah, these are the Q-Mix sends 1 and 2, which are not to be confused with the aux sends.
So that's purely and simply headphone sends.
Yeah, which is cool. So these are your mic pre's and these are your tape returns, or you can flip them, obviously.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just got a really cool. It's got a really cool low mid-range thing going on. You know, I wouldn't say it's got the super sub frequencies or high-end sheen like a Neve or an API, but for like a low mid, if you can imagine tubby in a very pleasing, cool sounding way, not tubby in a bad way.
All I can say is like, listen to Remain in Light by Talking Heads and hear this console.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Hotel California, Pink Floyd The Wall.
The Wall was done on one of these.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And
maybe Rob would talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of records, yeah. A lot of those guys did. And I saw a video online where one of the founders of SSL was talking about how they were inspired, some of their routing options and that kind of thing was inspired by MCI, which I never knew.
That also makes sense with Dave's transition from MCIs to SSLs.
Yeah.
So speaker selection, we live in a similar age. We've got 1031s.
Yeah. You know, when it was just a private studio, we had PMCs in here, which I really liked. But my mixes were coming out a little thin, and then I realized there's a little bit of a low mid sort of hump going on those.
I see.
That made me think that I had stuff that wasn't there, and so I went and just got the Genelecs because, you know, as a commercial studio, you kind of have to have NS10s and Genelecs. I mean, people sort of expect it, you know. People would come in not familiar with PMCs and...
Well, definitely in LA. It seems that in Los Angeles, most studios I go to, and to be honest, I have the same pair with other speakers as well, but when I moved to Los Angeles, every studio I go to would have those pairs, so I got used to them myself. What are the big JBLs here?
These are the LSR series, passive, and they really crank. They sound really great. We can't afford the big soffit mount mains, but these really do the trick, man. They're probably from the 80s, you know.
Those are your A&R speakers when you're trying to blow the air
Exactly, exactly. Trying to get them to leave, It's too loud. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Tape machine?
Tape machine, man.
So the 827.
Yeah, the classic.
And how are you recording to tape and then transferring in real time into Pro Tools for that way?
Yeah, exactly. So with the band that I'm doing now, we record all the drums and everything to tape, and then we overdub, you know, the bass and guitars. So we can come in here and just focus on the bass and guitars, but again, to tape, and then once we fill up all 24 tracks, then we transfer it to Pro Tools and continue on from there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I wish I had 2 of these. But yeah.
That's wonderful. The 827 was like the last Studer. That was a great machine.
Yeah, it's like the what do they call it? The space shuttle of tape machines, right?
Yeah, it's the pinnacle of tape.
Yeah.
Fantastic sounding machine.
Yeah.
And then moving on here, of course, the BCM10. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. All 1066s and one 1073. I think the story, as it goes, is that it was missing some channels at one point, and they had to be sort of found at various pawn shops and such years ago.
Back in the day when you could. When I first moved to LA 20 years ago, you could buy one of these for about $350.
Yeah, Scott paid $12,000 for this.
The whole thing?
Yeah, back in '97.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
This is a $70,000 console now, at least.
Came from BBC.
Oh, so this came up all the way from England?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, obviously originally always came from
England. Yeah, they all did, didn't they? And then, of course, you know, they did the Phantom here, which every BCM10 you see has a different solution for phantom power because they didn't come with them. That was another thing with the MCI. You know, there's no phantom power on some of these old boards. Condenser mics just weren't as popular, or at least the ones. I mean, you know, they all had their own power supply.
They had
the
their
small
own
diaphragms didn't have them, so we bought, you know, like a little 48-volt power supply. We stuck it in there, and we installed a button on the board for universal power supply. It goes across all the channels.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through some of the gear over here.
Okay, cool.
What?
Should I move this?
Yeah. I don't know if Connor can get this. What? I don't know what these are.
Which one? Okay, so you know, so there's a company in Chicago called Black Lion.
I don't know them.
Okay, so they're known. They started out modifying the Digi 002s. So you would send them your Digi 002, and they would replace the clocks and the you know, just the power supply and the converters and everything, and soup them up. And then Mutt Lange just went head over heels for them and sent them his 192s to modify, and they didn't do 192s. This was literally just a guy in his house. And so he just sent them anyway. He's like, just do them. And the guy's like, I don't know how to do. He's like, just do them. So he figured out a way to modify these, and then after that, the company exploded. So this was a joint venture between Black Lion and Requisite Audio, makes high-end mastering gear. So you send them your 192, and they soup it up. They change everything inside. All the internal components pretty much are replaced with super high-end ones. And then this is called the FM192, and they send it back. The faceplate's more just for fun, kind of. But yeah, so they sound really, really great. I mean, these are a few years old. They have a few newer ones now, but
you're the first person I've seen using them.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna now. Of course, every studio we go to is gonna have them.
Black Lion. Now they make their own things. Black Lion. We've got a couple of their, you know, 500s too, and all that. But yeah, they're amazing, man. They're absolutely amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. They sound great. And so this is the Shure Level-Loc. It's kind of famous.
Oh yeah, the Level-Locs are fantastic.
Yeah, like the Devil-Loc plugin.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it was really fun.
Can you explain to everybody what the Level-Loc does?
Yeah, it's a mono compressor. I mostly use it for, you know, like a mono drum. I've used it for different things from bass to vocal. Just to get a real crunchy, you know. I mean, these were originally designed to use, I believe, for like sports broadcasters for on the field, you know, when someone's calling the play-by-play through the PA at sports games, like high school sports games. I believe that's what these were originally designed for.
Which would make sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really cool little cheap unit, you know. And this was really fun cutting the handles off my Mac Pro. Chop them off with a hacksaw. Top and bottom. You remember how it has this thing that goes?
I do.
Yeah, in order to fit it into the rack. Yeah. Yep.
Now you've got some summits there. We're just about Dave Jordan, and
yeah,
presumably you were friends with Brian Karlstrom as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember Brian had more summit gear than I think any human being
racks
of summit gear.
Over at El Dorado, I think, for a while. Yeah. So you know, they got bought by Blue Microphones.
I sort of knew that. We were actually going to meet up with Eric, who now has a new company, who used to run Summit.
Oh, cool.
So we're meeting up with him at NAMM.
Cool.
Yeah, so Blue bought them. So is this new stuff then?
Yeah. Well, this is sort of their, I don't want to say their flagship, but this is the one that I always drooled over before I got it. Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of an LA2A vibe.
And that's why they've added this blue color here?
Yeah, exactly. You got to say, yeah, team spirit.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I these are really basic but sound amazingly.
Yeah.
Fast and slow, attack release, just...
Exactly.
You know, very, very straightforward.
Yeah.
Meter reduction, how you monitor on the meter and...
Exactly. I was going to get an LA2A, but I got two of these instead because they sound...
They do sound
really
fantastic.
Great. And then, you know, your standard...
Brian was always never afraid to basically have a lot of gain reduction on these.
Yeah, you can slam these things. It's really cool.
He used to just...
Exactly, yeah. It's really fun. Yeah, and I just love... You feel like you're doing something, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're really digging in, yeah.
1176?
1176, you know, can't live without it. Wish I had two.
LA3s, I mean, those are great on guitars.
This is a reissue, and then this is an old Teletronics. This has pretty much been Scott's, compressor for most of his career, according to Brendan O'Brien, who produced most of Scott's records. This is what he always used: U47, 1073, and then LA3A.
U47, 1073, LA3A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now he's got me hooked on LA3A for vocals. I never use anything else.
Oh, fantastic! I've always loved them for guitars because they have that 70s kind of spanky kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, for a male rock vocal, I think for me, I love the LA3A. You know, I don't necessarily use it on a female pop vocal per se, but it really digs in nice, you know.
And it's got a little
grit to it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah.
Both all the Teletronic stuff has a little universal, has a little grit that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you quantify it, but it just gives you a little aggression, which is why, you know, traditionally they're always great on guitars and snare drums.
Exactly.
A little bit of extra bite.
Yeah.
And then the Fatsos?
Yeah, you know, Fatsos. Can't live without it.
What are you using those on?
You know, I like them on bass when I'm trying to get a little extra oomph, you know? I mean, a drum sub, you know, parallel compression, bring it in a little bit. And then these are linked. These I don't have linked, these two for stereo operation, because this is an old vintage Teletronics, and this is a reissue. And I'm afraid there might not be exactly the same, so I'm afraid to use them stereo pair. You know, overhead, it's probably no big deal, but these two are linked, yeah. I
mean, the Distressors are like so crystal clear, and the thing about Distressor is, we've talked to a few people about Distressors, is they can be whatever you want them to be.
It's amazing. It's basically the first, it was like basically a modeler before all these modelers, you know, these amp modelers came out, and profilers and all that, you know. This is basically the hardware version of like a plugin that could do whatever. You know,
whatever you wanted it to do.
Whatever you wanted it to do, yeah.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Amazing. It's so great.
When I remember Michael Brown mixing a record of mine, and he had like a rack of them, and it was like kick, snare, you know, you name it, and they're all just flashing like this, like crazy. And they add like I think he was paralleling a lot of stuff just to add some aggression on the drum.
Exactly. Fantastic. That's what I do. I'll let the viewers in on a little thing. If you know the Radio Shack PCM mics.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my thing that I've been doing. I took those and I put them on music stands.
Right.
You know, just tape them to the music stands and put them out of the room facing the drums, and then just smash these 20 to 1, and just for the I don't know. I guess the viewers are sort of all the full spectrum of experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So these would go on 7007. That's my thing. And then PZMs, and it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel, but for anyone out there that wants to try it, it's really fun. It gives me just the gnarliest drum sound.
That's great. I love PZMs.
Yeah, they're so cool, right?
They're really cheap. In England, Tandy are the ones that we get.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're super cheap. What we used to do is we would take a bass cabinet, tape the PZM up to it, and then push it up to the hi-hat, and that was our hi-hat mic.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah, it just gets, it was amazing.
Why a bass cabinet?
Just because it was the right height.
Oh, okay, right. Right.
I mean, it was like, what was the phrase? Necessity is the mother of invention.
The mother of invention, or laziness. Yeah. I think mostly laziness is the mother of invention.
I just think for us, we had a drum room where the ceiling was like barely a foot above your head.
Oh, right.
You know, and we just had to do whatever you did, and we had 157.
Yeah.
You know, didn't even have a pair of condensers for overheads. It's like 2 different condensers.
Yeah.
But we did have a D12 on the kick, you know, which we'd inherited, you know.
An original one?
Yeah, but you know, in those days, frankly, that wasn't an expensive mic.
Right.
That was.
Yeah.
There's a sort of always a period with equipment, like we were talking about with the Neves, where it's not hip anymore.
Right.
And the new thing's out, so the old stuff is that you get for super cheap,
and then it'll come back.
And then 15, 20 years later, it's like vintage.
Exactly. It's awesome.
So the 160As, that's always been my inside kick mic.
Yeah. Inside kick and inside kick. You know, snare.
Fantastic.
Bass occasionally.
And then the 161, I see those on eBay every now and then. Yeah. What do you use them on?
Mono rooms and bass mostly. Yeah, the 161 is like the one. I had to look this up because you always see the 160.
It's the RCA connection one.
Exactly. Yeah.
And did you mod it from the RCAs?
Yeah. No. I just left it. Just put adapters on it.
Great.
I just told myself if there was ever a hum or a problem that I would modify it, but it's been fine.
Great. Yeah. Hey, if it ain't broke.
Yeah.
And then the little FMR, which
gotta have it, man. This is for those at home just starting out. It's cool because you know, it's what, $180 or something, $175.
Is that all it is?
Yeah.
And when you do use it, what do you use it on?
You know, that's the kind of thing where I don't use it here just because I've got all these things, but I use it at home sometimes. I use it on lead vocal. Yeah.
Great.
Or bass or guitar. It really sounds cool. I mean, I always say you got to spend a lot more money to get a better compressor than that. Like you can't.
Oh yeah.
If that's 175, you're not gonna. A compressor that's like 400 is not gonna sound. But you got to go up to like thousands before you sound better than that thing. It's just a weird anomaly. He really nailed it.
I had one of the very first ones that came out. Bought it from Guitar Center.
Yeah.
In my home studio of ADATs.
Yeah.
It sounded great.
Blackface.
Yeah. Blackface. Those were fun.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
This thing is cool. This is the same. So General Patent would would have these. He would have a whole truck of these and compressors and the like. And this is what he would basically broadcast out to all his troops on the radios with. And Scott was a huge World War II fan. So my friend Bill gave this to him as a gift. And this is helicopters. This is you see it says U.S. Army.
Yeah.
Signal Corps is the company. You know, it's just a really, really cool thing. Maybe later I'll take off the lid and show you just the tube sitting in there. You know.
Do you ever do you fire it up and use it or anything?
Yeah, yeah. It's just if you just want it sounds about how you think it would sound, just like real mid-rangey and nasally and just cool. You know.
Fantastic. Is there anything you've used it on specifically?
No. It's mostly just like, you know, like a little part here and there, like at an intro or like a breakdown section of something. It's not something you would probably use throughout a whole song, you know. Right. Usually vocal, just for fun, like an effect, you know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we're moving down to a pair of 1272s.
Yeah, the old Brent Averils. Yep. And it's pretty interesting how we did those. I don't know if everyone knows sort of the history behind these. You know, the 1272, as I'm sure you know, was never a mic preamp that Neve made.
No, just a line amp.
It's these things. You want to show them this?
Yep.
So here's your aux sends, and you see where it says 1272? So basically you just pull these out, and this is how Brent Averill started, right? He'd pull these out, he'd rack them, put all the buttons on them, turn them into mic pre's, and sell them. So it's
I know. I think I have at one stage I had 4 pairs.
Really?
I used to use them on my drums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford a Neve console.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this was the way to get. They were great on toms and you name it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first one I ever got was BAE Brent.
Right.
And I had a 1064 and a 1073. 1073 was on my snare, and 1064 was my guitar sound. Yep. And then I ended up getting a whole bunch of 1272s, and that was like the kick in.
Yeah.
And the toms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
You know, because
sounds amazing.
Well, I couldn't afford a console in those days.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Exactly.
You just kind of built it up as you go.
Yeah. And it's just made. I mean, you feel this. You know, there's a website where people review knobs.
Oh, there is?
Of all kinds. Not just pro audio, but just knobs. Right. People are really into it, like how it feels, you know. And this is like, it feels like you could feel the quality, basically, yeah.
And then what's GTQ? I've never heard of that.
Oh man, so this is Jeff.
Jeff Tanner.
Jeff Tanner.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yep.
Jeff Tanner.
Yeah. Aurora Audio.
I didn't see the Aurora over there.
Yeah, yeah.
I should have guessed the Jeff Tanner.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Geoff.
Yeah.
British Jeff. Yeah, it sounds great, man. I love it. You know, with the EQ, you know, kind of built in. I love the selectable frequencies.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan. Yeah, I like what he's doing.
Yeah, no, he makes wonderful stuff. Earthworks.
Earthworks is yeah, obviously they're known for their microphones. I love their microphones. You know, I use them on piano. I use them for room mics. You know, the little mono anteater looking things. And then, but you know, Earthworks mics, they don't work with, or maybe the new ones do, but the older ones I know for sure. Earthworks did not work with any mic pre with a transformer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so they make this mic preamp, and it's supposed to be like the quietest mic preamp in the world. You know, zero distortion technology, just like their mics. You know, 0 to 40K, like completely pure. You know, so it's not going to give you a cool, colorful, vibey sound. It's going to give you exactly the detail that you want. Next up, we have some more Summit. Yes, yeah, big fan, man. I love what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. It's just quality, you know. It's really quality stuff.
Well, this is continuously variable.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, it's cool for me. It's some debate. Some people like the D10, you know. So
I do like the D10 for recalling. Yeah. I think for recording, it's not as important to me as it is for mixing. Right. Because if I have to recall a mix and I'm using Sonor gear. Yeah. I like, you know, with Steve Jackson's new Pultex, he does the mastering ones that have the clicks, and that's really nice because I can recall a mix. Yeah. Because you know what click it's on, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You still mix through outboard gear sometimes?
I'm a combination of everything. I do hybrid and in the box. I have a console and I mix hybrid fashion through it. Oh, cool. And I'll mix in the box depending on the song. Right. You know, increasingly things are moving to in the box. Yeah. You know? I know, man. And some of my favorite mixes mix entirely in the box. Yeah, yeah. That's just the world we live in.
It's getting better and better. I know, man.
Great. Yeah. And then the Avalon, what do you use these on?
Room mics, overheads, acoustic guitar, anything I want a real clean sound for. Yeah.
Wonderful.
They don't color it too much.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to our friend Mark's products, the BAEs.
Yeah.
The 312As.
Yep.
These are like, to me, like souped up 312s. They sound just like the original 312s, but kind of better.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a huge fan of BAE, man. I tell you what, man, I've A/B'd those against, I mean, everything else in the studio. And those things stand on their own for sure. I think they probably sound better than the originals. And
what's your sort of go-to mic? What do you use them on and for, etc.?
A lot kick and snare.
Kick and snare is great.
Yeah. Sometimes toms. It just depends on the genre. For like an old classic 60s, you know, like a garage rock sound, I probably wouldn't use those. They have a lot of attack, and the transients and the beginning transients are really, really fast. So I use it for something like that. But if I want for more of a modern sound or a pop sound, I would always go with that over a Neve.
Well, that and Andy Johns and Val Garay, a couple of weeks ago we met with him. All you guys have these BAE 312s, and it's basically for the drum sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Andy John's sound in the 70s was with the original 312s.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of.
Yep.
I grew up thinking all these records, these English bands, records were made in England. Actually, a lot of them were made over here.
Yeah, by English producers. On
English producers flying over using, 312s, getting that sound.
Yeah.
These are wonderful things. Yeah. I use mine on guitars exclusively because I have a CADAC console, so all my guitars go through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I had enough of these, I'd probably put them on the drums.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah. They're just, I mean, honestly, anything from BAE is just top notch in my opinion. It's absolutely incredible stuff. Yeah.
And then we're moving on to Warm.
Yeah, so that's a new company that's doing sort of their own thing, kind of clones, but they're not trying too hard to model anything specific. The entry level, budget-minded consumer. These are really cool. He put a power button on these because of the power issues with the 500 series, sort of sharing all the power between all the modules. So this was nice of him. He played well with others. If you're not using these, you can free up the power.
That's great.
Yeah, and then it's got a cool little tone button that hits transformers in a different way. It just adds a little bit more warmth. They actually really are warm sounding. They're like the opposite of these. They're really more of a low mid, almost 90s kind of a punch to it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, and these are detented as well,
so
it makes it easy to recall.
Yeah, they're made pretty well. He does an 1176 now, and he does a Pultec style EQ. He's doing some cool things.
That's fantastic.
For the entry-level guys, yeah, it's really, really good.
And what are you using these on?
Guitars a lot, I've been using those a lot on guitars, electric guitars,
They're a little harsh, you can warm them up a little
bit. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I usually use, for an electric guitar cabinet or combo or whatever, a lot of times I'll start with a 57 and a 421 on the same speaker, and then sometimes those will be a little brittle, so either I'll pull them back a little bit or sometimes I'll just hit the tone button.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then moving on, more Black Lion, I see. Black
Lion, yeah, out of Chicago. They're great, and these aren't really clones of anything. They're just their own mic pre, and they sound really great. Again, guitars, drums, bass. The Auteur, yeah.
H3500, I have an H3000, this is a 3500.
Yeah. So speaking of Scott's vocal sound, this was also part of Scott's vocal sound that Brendan O'Brien used throughout the entire SCP career, which was a doubler. Scott never was a big fan of reverb. He always liked a doubler, So yeah, it was something like like a 7 millisecond delay on the left channel. And then like a 12 millisecond delay on the right channel, and then like 2 cents up on the left and 2 cents flat on the right, something along those lines.
I would do that all the time. I do that in mixes now. I do 3 and 3, 6 and 6, 9 and 9.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jordan's the one who showed me that.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Jordan would do that on pretty much every vocal.
Yeah.
Wait, did Dave do any STP?
He didn't. No, he did all the Alice in Chains.
He did all the Alice in Chains. He did all the Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
All the good Jane's Addiction back in the day.
I think most of the Offspring back in the day.
Offspring. Yeah, there was something else that he was telling me he was using it on, but
yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the 3500 and the 3? Just a little extra.
Yeah, it's got extra stuff in it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Extra stuff.
It's got extra stuff, yeah. I won't bore you with the details.
It's quite all right.
I don't know.
No. So many of these units, especially in early digital days when they had so many LCD screens and blah, 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 it's really, a lot to go into.
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned SansAmp.
Yeah, back in the day, when I started out, it was this, and then it was the pedal, the black and yellow SansAmp pedal. And this I just use like for scratch guitars when, if we only have combos with tubes and I want to go direct. It's fun. Yeah.
And then what's this iGate here? What does that do?
This is a thing made by Proco. It's just like for the control room. These two things are just for interfacing, so I can plug in the control room, and they all these things.
What a fantastic idea!
Come up in the patch bay.
That's a great idea. And so these are all balanced, so basically you get the same level coming into your console.
Exactly. This is a very simple unit. It doesn't even require power. It's literally just comes into here and comes out XLRs. Yep.
Fantastic, because that's one of the biggest problems I have.
Exactly.
Somebody gives me a cable, I search around, we plug it in, and then it's like the iPod's super loud or the computer's, whatever it is, nothing's ever.
Nightmare. So this works out great. And they make another one that's actually called the iRack. It is. It's called the iRack, but I think they discontinued it. So. And
then what's this? This is just for
So I think this was made by Scott's old partner. I assume, I'm not really sure, but yeah. So this one here, the 2 speakers and the 2 instruments. So if I'm recording guitars in here, I put the head up here, and then I plug the output of the head into the speaker 1 or 2, and then it comes up on the panel out there, and then I go from the panel into the cabinet.
Well, that's a great segue. Let's go to the live room.
All right. Are you playing a different key?
I'm playing the original key, C.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so dark.
Yeah.
Was it softened up?
No, it's a Samick Sig 50, I think it is.
Because I know sometimes, Keith, the guy out here, he'll do one of 2 things, especially on the Yamahas, they sometimes come in there with and then they take the felt and soften them, just to make them a little darker. This is super dark, which is great in a room like this.
Cool. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I'm a terrible piano player. As a piano player, I make a great guitarist. So this is the live room, obviously.
It is.
Here's the velvet we're talking about on the ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that was Scott's thing.
Yeah, man. Part of the vibe, yeah.
And I've been in this room before, as we were talking about. I did a talk in here.
Yeah. That's cool.
About 3 or 4 years ago. Sitting on that stage.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I recognised it as we were pulling up. I was like, wait there, I've been here before. So the corner.
That's cool, man.
I didn't put it all together.
Yeah, small world.
So you're talking about you do drums.
Yeah.
Somewhat in the middle.
Yeah, usually the piano's out here. I put the drums in the middle of the room. When I came in to open the studio to the public, I wanted it to be a little bigger. So I cut the stage back about 5 feet. So this way we have a 30-foot square. From wall to wall and wall to wall. Yeah, I usually put the drums here, and it sounds really cool. It doesn't sound like your standard, all wood studio.
It's interesting because this doesn't really prove anything. I know when people walk around, they go, it's just it's the only way to hear some high reflections. But it's kind of it's got a little bit of control and a little bit of looseness all at the same time. I've never seen a ceiling like this before, where with all of the velvet like this. Yeah. But I can see obviously it's going to break up a lot of standing waves.
It gets a lot. It absorbs a lot of the higher frequencies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's unique sound. Yeah.
You have a shrine to Scott.
We do. Yep. He's watching over us. Yeah. I think he'd be proud. I mean, we're trying to keep it going in his honor.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he loved this place, A lot of, Velvet Revolver was formed right here in this room.
Well, did they rehearse in here?
Yeah, we did all the pre-production and all the songwriting sessions for Contraband in here.
We had Slash at the studio just a couple months ago playing with Ace. So I'm just finishing up Ace's record.
Cool.
And it was Slash sitting on the couch and Ace sitting on the couch, and they traded solos.
Oh, wow.
So that's what's on the record.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I just finished mixing it, so you have like...
on which record?
Ace's new album. It's about to come out. So Ace is slightly to the right.
Yeah.
Sorry, got it wrong. Slash is slightly to the right,
Always.
he starts, and then Ace is slightly to the left.
Cool, cool.
And they trade solos. It's pretty awesome.
Amazing.
It's crazy. Slash has got a little bit of Ace in him.
Oh, yeah, I bet, yeah.
And then we had John 5 come along and play some parts.
Oh, wow.
It was an amazing guitar player.
Oh, my God, that's incredible.
Very humble.
Yeah.
I never worked with him one-on-one before. I didn't realize how, A, what a great guitar player is, and B, how humble he is. And he was just like a little kid.
Yeah.
And then we're doing, I don't want to say what songs we're doing because this will probably come out before the album comes out. But we were doing some songs that were quite well known.
Yeah.
And he knew all the parts.
Wow.
He knew Ace's solos.
Wow.
So you're like, wow, this is great.
That's amazing.
I love that. You know what I love about a lot of what we do is that
we're fans.
We're all fans of music.
We're all fans. Yeah, that's the thing.
I've told this story before, so excuse me if you guys have heard it. But when Iggy got back together with the remaining Stooges, they were rehearsing in my old place, and in the room next door. Chili Peppers were doing pre-production.
Okay.
And we came out, and Rick Rubin and Anthony Kiedis were standing by the door. Listening to Iggy and the remaining Stooges outside. And they were like, can you take us in so we can meet Iggy, please? Totally. Like two little kids.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Rubin and Anthony Kiedis, who are all both like, massively successful and multi-millionaires, just like little kids.
Yeah, incredible. I have a very similar story to that. Our mutual friend Dave Kushner, one of my favorite people. We were at Mates with, I think it was with Velvet Revolver, and I pull up and I see Dave, like the same thing, in a room that's not ours. Hey Dave, what's happening? He's like, it's Black Sabbath. It was amazing, Yeah. So yeah, you have to be a fan of music, I think, you know what I mean? And I always say, I don't have to go to work, I get to go to work.
Yeah.
We're so lucky.
I mean, John Lennon was a fan of Little Richard.
Yeah.
When Jack remixed the Starting Over album, he went back to all the original live off the floor tracks. Oh, wow. And one of the songs starts off with him talking. He goes, "This one's for Richard," and stuff. And he mentions all the names of all the guys he was fans of. And
so cool.
I think the whole point of that is that everybody's a fan.
Yeah.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all the same. We're all in this because we love music.
Yeah.
We're all passionate about it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're sitting at home with your 2-input DAW or you're in a studio with racks and racks and racks of gear in some massive room. We're all the same. We're all just fans of music, and we just get to do it and what we love.
Just chasing the magic sonics.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, you got some gear here. There's some drums.
Yeah. This is my friend Chris, who the two of us basically worked on Lavish for the past 2 years. But yeah, this is sort of his department. This is an old stop sign badge, Gretsch, which I think this is when they still made their own shells back in the day.
So this is like late 70s, early 80s. This is the golden period.
Exactly.
I know all the big guys I know. Victor Andrizzo, Brian McLeod. Yeah. This is the drum kit they all want. Yeah. They all have, but
Yeah.
And so you have two of them.
There's two of them. Yeah. This one was Scott's brothers, and that one is Chris's.
And this Ludwig here?
Yeah. I don't know the story behind that. That's Chris's. A lot of the stuff he's
like early 70s, I think. In that logo.
Yep.
And then you have
this is just the little tech area.
Tech area.
Yeah. So this thing is like the opposite sound of that. Super bright. Something about the vinyl.
No pedals.
Yeah, no pedals. Look how bright it is. Wow. Isn't that cool? It's just got such a bright, just cool sound. I mean, I don't know if it's a vinyl wrap. I don't know anything about it or what brand it is, but it's just got a really cool, bright sound. What I was going to do, I was going to turn it into a tack piano.
That'd be really good for reinforcing guitars.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to turn it into a tack piano, put tacks on each hammer, and then get that super bright sound. But I didn't really want to ruin the hammers. So what I was going to do is take a leather strip and then you Velcro it on this side. The leather strip goes under all the hammers, and then the leather strip has tack heads on it.
Oh, I see.
So and then you can take it off. You know,
because my piano at one stage was a tack piano, and I think it kind of ruined it. But
exactly,
probably in a good way.
Yeah.
Now,
there's a lot of random little toys around here.
I have no idea how to play this properly. I assume it's something like this. And you sort of
squeeze and you press stuff, and
it's beyond my technical capabilities.
Advanced.
The Omni chord is hilarious. I love these things. Oh, this is they're calling this the Q chord. It's not the Omni chord.
It's the Suzuki, yeah.
Ricky, don't lose that number. Okay. Sorry, Steely Dan.
Yeah. So this is from NOLA Recorders in 1993. And then...
who's this?
You know, I don't know. It was there when I got the console. And John Post was from NOLA.
Right.
And then me and Swiss Chris and Scott signed it.
What year is that with Scott?
2014.
2014. When did you get the console in here?
In April of 14.
April of 14.
Yeah.
Just getting back to talking about humility in there and working with great people. I was working with this Latin band a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago. And I remember we all went outside to take a break. I don't know, maybe a couple of them smoked cigarettes or something. But anyway, we went outside to take a break. And Latin, Mexican artists love British bands, like obsessed about late 70s, early 80s in particular. They like, New Order, obviously Joy Division, the original band, The Cure and the Bauhaus and all that stuff.
All that stuff, yeah.
And I was working with them, and it's great because I love working with Latin-based artists. I'm working with one at the moment because they love the English aesthetic, and it really works well.
Yeah.
So we're outside. They're all 19, 20 years old. We're sitting outside, a couple of them are smoking, and Peter Murphy comes out. And they are all visibly freaking out that the lead singer of the Bauhaus is standing there. And they're all like this. And he's just standing outside. Maybe he's on the phone or something. I don't remember now. And he turns and sees like these kids, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And they're like, "Hello, Mr." They were calling him Mr. Murphy. "Hi, Mr. Murphy. Nice to meet you, Mr. Murphy." And the lead singer reaches into his bag and pulls out like 20 CDs that are in his bag that he's carrying with him. And he like rifles through them and he pulls out like a CD of the Bauhaus, and it's like, not asking to sign, just like validation of like, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm listening to your music at the moment, and here it is. And he's got a Bauhaus CD. And he's holding it up like proof of like, I'm a huge fan of yours.
Yeah.
And then Peter Murphy, you can see he understands what's going on, and he's like, starts to tell a story, and he says, when I was in England, as a kid, I was the biggest fan of Iggy and the Stooges. We all were. When we were kids in England, to make that music, it was all about American bands. Right. It was all about the Velvet Underground,
T-Rex,
Solo, and that's, Bowie and all that stuff. It was all that thing, but it was all about the New York scene bands, the CBGBs, all of that stuff. And he said the first time, he's like 19 years old, they come to America, they stay at the Chelsea Hotel, which is the legendary hotel. Yeah. And they'd heard that Iggy would be in the bar. So he says it's like during the day, he comes down from his hotel room, goes down to the bar, and he said the bar's completely dark and empty, except for what looks like an old lady sitting at the end of the bar. It's probably 1980. Right. And he says he sneaks down to the end of the bar. Yep. It's not an old lady, it's just like Iggy Pop sitting at the end. And he said he sits down and he starts talking to Iggy. And the whole point is like, he's just trying to break the ice with these kids and let them know, I'm just a fan like you. Yeah. I was 19 years old freaking out because Iggy Pop, and I got to talk to him and all this stuff. And it was great. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, everybody's loose and hanging out and talking. And I love that stuff because, when we work in this industry for years and you get to work with some of your heroes. Yeah. you know, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But you know, doing this album with Ace, it's called Origins, and the album is about him. He's a fan of all these other bands, so he's covering songs by bands that he's a fan of. And,
cool.
And then, you know, John Five's a fan of Ace.
Right,
and this kid, and this kid's a fan of John Five.
Right.
It's great that everybody, we love this, and we're so passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, it's all about, it's at the end of the day, the music. I mean, I love gear. I love obsessing over gear. It's I have a problem with it for sure. At the end of the day, you know, it's all for music. You know, I mean, you know.
And if you've got a great performer with a great performance, it doesn't matter whether you used a $79 microphone or a $7,000 microphone. It's irrelevant.
Exactly.
All the best records aren't necessarily, you know. Honestly, I mean, frankly, these were never like the most expensive consoles.
No.
And there was a period where you could get these for nothing.
Yeah. I'll tell you later what I paid for this. Yeah, but I mean, there's a friend of mine, Chris Steffen, who's an amazing engineer, and he used to tell me. You know, I would ask him which mic pre, which compressor, blah blah blah, and he would say, you know, there's so many more important decisions that you're going to make over the course of a day than what mic pre to use, you know, and I would say what reverb you want to use, and someone would say this one over that one, and he would say, oh, how many extra record sales is that going to be worth? That mic pre over that mic pre.
Yeah,
you know, nobody knows, you know. Yeah.
I think. We have to go and interview him, but I always forget. Shelley Yakis. I was driving a couple of years ago, and I called him up, and I was just frustrated in this session, and we were doing a mix, and we were getting into like this kind of world of you know, it was all like this stupid tiny like detail thing, and he laughed. And he said that, you know, he was making, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but like a famous artist. You know, Shelley did Damn the Torpedoes. He did Stevie Nicks. Yeah. He did, like, he recorded Don't Fear the Reaper.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So, you know, so he's working with all these incredible artists in the 70s and the early 80s, making some of the best-selling records ever. Yeah. And he said that he would always get into the same conversation with an artist, and artists would be like, you know, getting them to do this tiny little detail stuff, and then they would be unsure of the details, and they'd be like, what do you think? Do you think it's making it better? And he goes, I don't think it made it better, but it made it different.
It made it different, exactly.
So it's just, you know, sometimes we just kind of have to, I think the most important thing is that the artist, when they're making a record, walks away with something that they love.
That they're happy with.
Yeah. So if you have to spend 3 hours mixing the hi-hat 1 dB lower or slightly 5% more in left or right or whatever it is they need, if they walk away owning it, like, I love this record, and that detail made them love it. Yeah.
It's taking pride in your job, you know? I mean, I love when a band gets excited and they high-five and they're like, woo, it sounds amazing. That makes me so happy. That's why I do this, you know? And you know, and part of it is, you know, the producer in me is always, not necessarily at odds, but I'm always sort of, I vacillate between the producer guy and the engineer guy, you know what I mean? Because part of me is like, oh, it has to be Transformer, it has to be Lundahl, it has to be, you know, and then the other part of me is like, you know, what's the verse? You know, what's the verse groove? The groove of the second verse, without the vocal, I love doing that. I love just soloing the second verse. I mean, just muting the vocal on like the second verse once the groove is established. That kind of thing, just the music part of it versus, you know, the knobs and dial part of it. And I always, you know, you walk that line, you know, how much time do you spend? Every 5 minutes I spend tweaking a button or a knob is 5 minutes I'm not spending with the artist working out the song.
Absolutely. So. As I've done this for longer, I've been working with great producers as a musician. I see the value in that, being able to stand back and see things as a whole.
Exactly.
And the more I mix, the more I try to see things as a whole.
And well, then some people don't want it. They don't want to be producers. They want to tweak the knobs and buttons. That's all they care about. And
I love those guys.
And that is paramount. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that detail stuff as well.
And that's me. It's half art, half science. You know. Right. I think. Yeah.
That's a nice analogy. Half art, half science.
Well, it's like with the guitar. They say the left hand is what you know, and the right hand is who you are.
Ooh. Oh, I don't know what that means about me. I don't want to think about it.
Well, when my friend Jeremy passed, he was Scott's guitar player. He passed away in March, and we had to have auditions to replace him. And everyone was playing the songs exactly right. They were playing it properly. But the right hand, no one could really get that the way he got it.
Right.
You know.
It's funny you should say that because that
swagger, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, the swagger. I completely understand. I always say that about Hendrix because a lot of people can play Hendrix.
Oh yeah. It's not going to sound like Hendrix.
No, and you're right. You know, I'm glad you're pointing this out because you're right. Because with Hendrix, he played lead like he was playing rhythm.
Yeah.
I always think of like, you know, it's
lead and rhythm at the same time.
It's lead and rhythm at the same time.
So
there was a guitar player in England, Dr. Feelgood's guitar player, Wilco Johnson. And Wilco Johnson used to play lead rhythm. So we do like little Chuck Berry riffs in the middle of the chord.
In the middle of the chords, yeah.
And it makes you want to dance.
Greasy. Exactly.
Yeah, it's being able to put those two things together, and it's very uniquely rock, soul, funk, whatever it is. It's just not classical.
Exactly.
It's very, it's that, and that's sometimes what messes us up with DAWs and being able to edit.
Oh man,
it's like we take that away. We don't realize that that's something only a musician can do. That kind of like push and pull on the groove.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had endless conversations with. There's a band I'm doing now, a really amazing band called Vox Waves, and we're doing the record on tape. And it's like, you know, once the 24 tracks are full, we transfer to Pro Tools, and at that point, you know, we make a decision. Do we want to lock the drums to a grid? Well, yeah, it would make the drum. They have an amazing drummer too, but you know, everyone's human, and it's going to push and pull. You know, it's. You can't just say, do you want the song locked to the grid? You have to think bigger than that. It's a philosophical question almost. What kind of band are you? You know, what kind of record do you want to make? I mean, there's a certain almost angst or something that sort of kind of doesn't feel right when a guitar's a little bit out of tune, or when the singer's a little pitchy, or when the drummer's pushing and pulling. And that's, you know, I mean, can you imagine like Zeppelin, like, I mean, you wouldn't have to anyway, but like locked to the grid and all the little noises of the guitar cut out and all the vocals, it wouldn't sound like Led Zeppelin.
No.
But yet everyone's just obsessed with, you know, I've had singers come in and demand that I auto-tune everything because they have no confidence in their ability. No. And I tell them, you have amazing pitch, you don't need auto-tune. And they would, you know, this is the first time everyone's ever let me not use auto-tune.
Tim Palmer was interviewed. You know Tim, he's an old friend of mine, and he was interviewed the day after Bowie passed for the BBC. And you can find it online. It's a great interview. And he was talking about making the Tin Machine records, which are much maligned. You know, the time people didn't like them. Now, of course, everybody's going back and going, it's amazing. As now always happens. Because Bowie had been in this massive creative pop thing and made so much money, and then he just was like, I need to do something raw.
Right.
So he hires the Hunt Sales and Tony Sales, the Sales brothers, and makes, you know, who were playing with Iggy, and makes a dirty rock and roll record. And Tim produced and engineered it with Bowie. So he talked about Bowie singing a sad song. I don't remember the title. I'm sure somebody here will. Singing a sad song. And then they come in and listen to it. And of course, Tim's just like, wow, David Bowie, amazing. Comes in and Bowie listens to it and he goes, it just doesn't sound sad enough. And Tim's like, okay. And he said that Bowie went back in and re-sang the song slightly flat.
Wow.
And that's true. It's like, you know, we can go on for hours about this. You know, keys are approximations, like C sharp and D flat are two different notes. And Bach with Equal Temperament came along and made a decision about what that note was, somewhere between it. The point is like all of these things are approximations. If you tune for a key, C sharp would be one note going up and D flat coming down to sound perfect. So what somebody like Bowie and great musicians do, and they understand, or at least they know how to do, whether they can describe it, they know the ability.
They do it naturally.
They know how to sharpen, flatten those notes. Now, we all use Auto-Tune, we all use Melodyne. It's a great tool when the performance is perfect, but we have to just adjust the notes slightly. That's where it becomes a wonderful tool.
It's a slippery slope, though.
But it's a slippery slope if we go in through the whole vocal. It can sound great and pop and perfect, but it can lose a singer's interpretation.
Or any sense of uniqueness.
Absolutely.
Or any trademark that they might have is gone. You know, there's like, you know, there's another band I work with that who's the bass player was sort of always on top, which is sort of, you don't really want that, you know, you want the bass player a little bit behind. You know, I didn't want to fix it. That's the sound of the band, and the band's going to go on for hopefully a long career, make a lot of records. That's the sound. It's part of what makes the sound of the band. And then I'm not going to go in and just suck all the life out of it. You know?
There's a very well-known bass player we were talking about earlier off camera. I'm not going to mention. Who's always on top.
Exactly.
And he's very well known and very successful, and it's a big part of his sound.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love when you hear like he's pushing the drums a lot. And take that away, it's like that's not his sound anymore.
Yeah, and it's hard, man. Sometimes it's difficult to like to contain yourself because you reach for that mouse and you're like, I gotta line it up. It's off, and you hear it and your ear goes whoop because there's like a flam between the bass and the kick or something, and you want it to be tight, but at the same time, you know, again, it's just what kind of record are we making here? Let's stop and have a conversation about it, you know.
Absolutely.
Before we
the first real musician I got to track when I was out here, and I owe him a lot, was Dan Rothschild. When I first moved here, he was like great bass player. Who's actually Paul Rothschild's son.
Yeah, I love what he did with, remember Tonic?
Of course. Yeah, the first record's great. And my old engineer, Robin, another English guy, he came up with this. He used to call, Dan has this feel where the kick, the attack of the kick, and then the attack of the bass are like, I don't know how he does it, but I don't think I ever had to put him behind. He'd always just be behind the kick.
Perfect, yeah.
And we used to call it a nanosecond rather than a nanosecond.
Instead of a nanosecond. Yeah.
It was just like but the point is like you choose musicians on their performances, on the way they play, you know. Or, you know, if you're hiring session players, or you preserve the feel. I mean, one of my favorite producers ever is John Leckie. And the reason why I like John Leckie is because he produced Cooler Shaker's first record. He produced the Stone Roses first record. And he produced the Bends, which I think is Radiohead's best record. Personally. Everybody have different opinions. The thing that's great about those three records is not one of them sounds like he imposed himself on them. And yet those are, for me at least, the three best records by those bands. And he was able to have the band be a unique band. Each single time. And it wasn't like, oh, this is the way I make records.
Exactly. That's sort of my philosophy as a producer is I don't necessarily want to have a sound or a thing that I do. You know, my favorite producers are the ones, you know, you look at like Rick Rubin or something like that, they can do anything. You can't really listen to a record and say that's Rick Rubin. I can listen to a record and tell you that's a Mutt Lange production. I can listen to a record and tell you that's probably mixed by Chris Alge. And that's great, and that's a cool thing to have. It's just, for me personally, if I'm the more transparent I am, the better, I think. And, you know, it's just, you know, we're all just slaves to the song, right? And so I just want to make the song the best. I don't want to make the band the best. I don't want to make the guitarist the best or the album the best even. I want to make that song the best. Let's forget everything else even exists, you know? And so transparency, I think, as a producer I think it's a good thing. But, you know, guys develop their sound and they develop the thing and then they're known for that thing, which is cool too. It's probably better for their careers. But again, it just goes back to that whole, you know, are you producing or are you engineering? Doing both is tricky, you know. I love to have a big budget, you know, where I can have an engineer, you know, all the time, just not even touch the knobs and just work with the band. But, you know, can't always do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you ever so much, Rocco. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
So, Lavish Studios, we're going to put the web address down the bottom here.
Lavish Studios.
So please do that. As ever, please go to the website, sign up on the email list, you get a bunch of free stuff, subscribe, and check out the studio. We didn't want to be morbid. This is Scott Weiland's place. Rocco runs the studio. Rocco contacted me because he really wanted people to see what a wonderful studio this was, and I'm glad because one of the things about what you do, we'll make this quick because I know we're wrapping up, is that you've got the right selection of gear. I don't see 57 pieces of extra stuff. I really love that. It's really good. So if there is anybody here who's interested in coming and checking out the studio for recording, there's a really great selection with a great live room and a wonderful console with great history. So thank you as ever. Please subscribe, go to the email list, check out the website, and have a marvelous time recording and mixing.